Good afternoon. This is always known as the graveyard shift after lunch, but you look really alert and bright. So what I'd like to do, just before I start, if that's okay, we're going to talk about Experiences New Black. This is not a big audience participation bit, but could I just have the house lights up for a moment? Could everyone just stand up? This will only take a couple of minutes and you don't have to do anything or say anything. Just please stand up. And the house lights up just a little bit so I can see everyone out there. Still a few people to stand up, especially along that middle row. All the naughty people have sat down the back. That's okay, we'll find out. What I want you to do, think about first, anyone that was born after the year 2000, firstly you should be at school, but if there's anyone here, please sit down after the year 2000. Anyone that was born after 1990, please sit down. Okay. Anyone born after 1980, please sit down. More. That's good. We're talking to you. Anyone born after 1970, please sit down. A lot more. Anyone born after 1960, please sit down. And we know where we sit, we talked about it last night. So we're the baby boomers, Chairman Lee. And we've got a few baby boomers. Okay. The importance of that is, thank you, you can all sit down now. We're actually going to talk about this quote. Sorry, I'll just go back. This is a quote from Maya Angelou. For those people that know Maya Angelou, she was a famous civil rights activist in the United States. She was a poet, she was a singer, and this is probably the best quote for the world of brand experience that I can think of. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Who can remember their very first exhibition or their very first trade show? I can. And it will take me back. That's why I wanted to find out what age group we got there. That's a black and white picture that was taken in my home city of Melbourne. In 1954, that shot was taken. I was 1 year old at that stage. It's near Flemington. For all those people who are into horse racing, Flemington is near where the famous Melbourne Cup is run. But also what happens every year, there's what they call a Royal Agricultural Show, which is really a trade show. Yes, it has animals and it has farm machinery, but some of the halls have exhibitors who are banks, just like our trade shows. So I can remember this vividly. And these are some of the images from the 1950s, so all us baby boomers can relate to this, because in those days it almost looked like we never had colour. They're all in black and white. There were Ferris wheels. So yes, we talked about, Mark was talking about entertainment. Yes, there was entertainment. If you look at that middle picture up the top, that's one, I think that's the Royal Hall of Industries. Now in there was a trade show going on. People were in there showing off whatever it is that they were selling. And you can see it down the bottom, and obviously there's the fun stuff for the kids as well. So that, to me, is a trade show. It is an exhibition, and it definitely was an experience. This is a picture that I took out of the Freeman Archives from 1952, I think it was. It was an apparel show. You can see the concrete floor, and I think you can see by the fact that all the men are wearing hats, or there should be, that it definitely is that era. I've shown this for a reason. I'm just going to skip through a couple of the decades. This is a little bit further on. That was in China. In fact, my head of marketing, who's based with me in Singapore, she actually remembers when she was at Rolls-Royce and BMW, actually going to these shows where they were motoring spare parts. Interesting, they're probably about 20 or so years apart. Similarities. I think there's carpet. So there's been an innovation take place. This is one that was done this year. Fortunately, it was one of the ones that we did at Freeman, which is the SAP Sapphire Now exhibition and conference. I want you to take a look at that because a little later on, I'll show you what's influencing some of the designs, because some of the experiences are being influenced by things outside of our industry. And just look at the concentric circles and the way that's laid out, and I'll point that out in a moment, how that relates to things like the Burning Man festival that takes place. Just so I could come into the present, I actually attended, it was about 3 weeks ago, I think it might have been, the FinTech Festival in Singapore, which is basically the world's largest FinTech. What other place should it be but in Singapore? What I found was very interesting, and these are poor pictures that I took with my iPhone, but I want you to look at similarities again. This is 60 odd years later from what I've shown you before. This is the thing I found interesting. I'm sure many of you remember, and the X generation and certainly the baby boomers, we're all told once upon a time, now the thing to get an audience engaged is put a theatre. Put a theatre in on your stand and that'll win it all. Well, guess what? There's lots of theatres now. If you look at the bottom left, they all look like that. Different brands, Deloitte, AMTD and Prudential. Is this innovation? It wasn't. It was very much about imitation. And there weren't that many people in it. So that was an innovation once, but it's not anymore, but people copy. There was a famous person in the United States who was a creative director, a guy called Ted Henry, who wrote a series of podcasts called Accidental Creative. And he had a wonderful saying. He said, cover bands never changed the world. It's worth thinking about. This is what's sort of happening here. But what's also interesting, UOB, this was the award-winning stand at FinTech. It's a nice stand. Yes, we're proud of it. Freeman designed it. But I look at it and I go, I went to this expo. It stood out. Yeah, it was the best stand, but what did it achieve? I think the measurements that came back said it was a good stand. Everyone talked very positively about it. Probably the strongest thing that was happening in there are conversations. But is it enough nowadays? With millennials, we've got a room full of millennials already. And we'll show you the statistics and some of the research that Freeman have done soon. Is it going to be enough? Probably not. Interestingly enough, I think it might have been Brian was talking about at CES. There's one plug for you, Brian, just had one just then. What was the really exciting thing for me at this FinTech, and a place that I spent a lot of time at, there was a startup area. And it was really basic. They were given a screen and a place that is almost like an old-fashioned phone booth. I spent most of my time there because these guys were passionate. They were sharing stories. They're obviously trying to sell what they've got. But most of the corporate stands, people didn't want to be there. They were manned by people or personed by people who just didn't want to be there. And the conversations weren't happening. But you go into this startup area, and I'm sure Brian finds it at CES as well, it's exciting, it's dynamic, it's passionate. And that's where you want to be. Here's an example. This is Dreamforce this year. This is an interesting, just a redesign of a space. And it's what we call a blended space. What they've done is actually design the space, then put the people in, then put the brands in. So it's no longer, as I think it was mentioned this morning, it's not about real estate sales anymore. This is about coming up with a concept, building a narrative, and remember that word narrative because it's about storytelling, and we're talking about brand storytelling here. In fact, little did you know that you're all in the business of brand experience, not just me. You are all in the brand experience business, and the brand experience business is helping your customers and your clients tell the stories that they need to tell, to connect. Audiences today want more. We've got a millennial audience. I've got 2 children. They're both millennials, so I know it only too well. The millennials are an audience that want things simple. They want things relevant. And they want to be part of co-creation. They don't want to be told or just turn up. I think the original theme for this presentation was it's about experience, not just being there. Well, the millennials are driving that. Interestingly enough, at the moment, if we look at 2020, 45% of the workforce, and for those that you own businesses, your workforce, and in Korea, I think probably more, because you've got a younger population, 45% in the year 2020 are going to be millennials. So is your business for them number one to employ? And are your exhibitions, your conferences built and designed to be ready for the way that they need to be and want to be communicated with? Experience expectations because of the millennials is changing. Let's just have a look at this for a moment.
The pace of change in the last 10 years has been explosive, really. I mean, consider some of the facts. Soon China will become the #1 English-speaking country in the world. The US Department of Labor estimates that today's student will have 10 to 14 jobs before the age of 38. The top 10 most in-demand jobs in 2013 didn't even exist 10 years ago. While there are over 100 billion Google searches every month, now mobile searches exceed desktop searches. If Facebook were a country, it would be the third largest behind only China and India. 1 of every 6 married couples in the US met online. The amount of technical information in the world is doubling every 2 years. In 5 years, there will be 50 billion devices that will be connected to the internet. Wireless charging, predictive assistance, self-driving cars, 3D printing, flexible displays, it's all coming, and it's coming fast. So with all this technology comes even more data. Data that not only explains who we are, but can predict what we want, what we're thinking, and what places and things we will most gravitate to. This means that those who have information, those who derive insights from data, and those who can turn this information into useful experiences will rule the day. The ever-growing number of technology solutions is dizzying, and the demands from consumers will only increase. What's more, as technology goes from beyond the screen to every part of our lives and the world, we should expect more customized experiences, more user-driven content, more participation between buyers, sellers, and suppliers. Think about it. Just a few years ago, Uber changed how we get from one place to another because someone realized technology could connect drivers and riders seamlessly and improve the experience in the process. In other words, the space between demand and supply is shrinking. Because of that, marketing will become hyper-personalized. Consumers will expect us to know them deeply, provide them with real-time information easily and seamlessly across all of their devices, and they'll expect a real and meaningful link between their virtual and their actual experiences. They'll spend more time researching the things they care about before they come to events. Once they're there, they'll want faster and easier access to the information that they care about most. Gone will be the days of waiting in line, sitting through demos, sifting through a sea of people to find the insights they desire. The entire experience will have to change. This will be our challenge. For the first time in our history, we have 4 generations of consumers side by side, consuming our content, expecting results, demanding things the way they want them. What are we to do? How are we to keep pace? Well, we don't have all the answers. But if we put our minds to it, we can lead this change, evolve our business, and protect and defend our leadership position.
People are the new media. They always have been. Everything in that video was supporting every speaker that we heard up till now saying exactly the same thing. And hopefully when we get to the end of it, we'll realise that this is not a weak signal out there that's just blipping. It's loud and clear. It's right in front of us. It's scary change, but it's also opportunity. The image you see up there also represents what I think we talk about, the convergence of technology. I prefer to call it the convergence of technology and people. Because what we're really talking about here, this is where I will probably differ a little bit from our other speakers, because I'm not, maybe because I'm a baby boomer, I don't get seduced by technology that much, although I am a bit of a geek from time to time. I would actually like to talk about human 2.0, because we're different. We're evolving in the way we expect our communication. We've always been storytellers. Every culture, no matter where you go in the world, storytelling is the basis of everything. And there's an opportunity for us in our industry to basically start to help our clients tell their brand stories. This is no different from seeing the cavemen having their conferences, their events around a campfire, sharing stories to make sense of the world. That's why groups get together at expos and trade shows as well. They're trying to make sense of their place in their industry. This is no different. All this technology is for human 2.0. It's connecting people in meaningful ways. That's the idea. We don't want to just connect them. They've got to connect so they're actually meaningful. For me and my business, it's a creative business. This is a scary time for us because reality is, once upon a time, probably I've been in the industry now for 35 years. 35 years ago, even I, who don't see myself as that creative, could call myself a creative guru. Just like advertising agents could say, we're the creatives. Those days have gone. Everyone's a creative. So for professional creatives, this era is actually our toughest time because everyone's out there being a creative. This was a shot taken from Burning Man Festival. And don't dismiss these people as just a whole bunch of young kids having a great time. They're really smart consumers and they're smart communicators and they know how to connect, and they're going to drive the way all of our businesses go in the future. The idea of Burning Man Festival, maybe for baby boomers like me who don't know, it's actually it's called a festival. It probably isn't, but what happens is they actually create a city in Black Rock. I think it's Arizona is where it's created. And this whole event, everyone partakes in actually building the event that they want. It's co-creation. And there's a word that I think is also an opportunity for us in our industry, is co-creation. This is how South by Southwest, which a number of you may know, music festival, video games, etc., it's even starting to influence some of the exhibitions that Freeman are involved in at the moment. This is where people are actually determining what the content's going to be like. They actually tell the speakers what they want to hear. So if I was presenting to you here, you'd be telling me what you want to hear rather than me doing the other way around. There's no backseat drivers anymore. There's no one there telling you what to do. You're actually driving in the front seat. This is the future of some of our expos as well. Okay, this is basically for gaming, etc., and don't dismiss gaming. Esports, we've just finished a huge esports program in China, and it's scary, the size of it, and it's scary, the amount of money, and basically it's like the gamers are like rock stars. So this is an expo where when you go to an expo, you don't want to be wandering around a trade booth. You actually want to go in and you want to be doing something. You actually want to, so that's an example there. It's about self-curation. You will be basically, and your audiences will be building the things themselves. It's about making it personal and making it relevant. We've already seen that today. We are living in an age of mass. Actually, I'll say more than mass. It's extreme personalisation. That video that you saw from our Chief Marketing Officer, Chris Kavanagh, is showing you how it's extreme personalisation. And in a moment, we'll look at some examples of that. So when you're designing and your clients and your customers are designing their booths or their spaces, are they ready for personalisation? Because the new audience and some of the audience there now are definitely demanding it. We talked about augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality. It's really all really exciting. But to me, as a storyteller, it's still a storytelling medium. It is the convergence of technology and humanity 2.0. It just helps us tell stories in a more connected way. Augmented reality, strangely enough, I'll be showing you some virtual reality as well. We all get seduced by that, but to me, augmented reality and mixed reality is really what I get excited about, because you don't have to walk around with a goggle. And we'll show you how it's actually happening in a moment, and I just saw this happening in Shanghai. In fact, this is the shot. Is everyone aware that last week the world's largest Starbucks carvery opened in Shanghai? It's 30,000 square feet, 2 levels. If you can see that yellow space down the back, they've designed it down to the nth degree. They are little Chinese chops that tell the story of Starbucks. And I'll show you, there's bars there. You can see the coffee being roasted. It's the most amazing place. When they opened last week, I went there on Monday and couldn't get in. I wasn't prepared to wait for half an hour. When they opened the first week, the queue was around the block in Shanghai 2 hours. You had to wait to get in. 2 hours. And it seats 600 people. That's extraordinary. So retailers are now in the experience business. Trust me, this is an exciting place. So if you get to go to Shanghai, have a look. For example, all the pillars, all the copper vats around there, augmented reality is there, also the usual QR codes where you can actually find out the story about the coffee that's being made. Disruption to the marketing system. This is the biggest thing that's taken place, and in my creative industry, it's happened to me now as well. As I said before, everyone's a creative. This isn't happening anymore. This is the only place that people are sitting and watching a television in a living room. It just doesn't happen anymore because, okay, this is one of the later versions, but when Apple bought out the iPhone and then Samsung, not that many years afterwards, bought out their first smartphone, it changed the world. And it certainly changed our world as well. We're all publishers. All the millennials in there are publishers. You are a network. You are actually, it's not a newspaper anymore or even the bloggers. You are a network. You are actually sharing good stories and passing them on. You're also passing on bad brand stories as well. But it's really important. Millennials want authentic experiences that generate content that's fresh, that's new. They want to be invited to participate. It's about cultural partnerships. That Burning Man Festival we looked before is an example of that. And it's about creating meaningful connections through authentic storytelling. There's that word storytelling again. This is a great quote from Khaled Juma, who is a Palestinian poet who wrote an amazing book, if you want to read it, and especially with what's happening there at the moment, called The Children of Gaza. It, to me, is a quote that sums up. Give people, our audiences, give people a canvas, don't give them a conveyor belt. I come from a generation where a conveyor belt was okay. I thought I was doing pretty well, but no, you've got to give them a canvas so they can actually co-create with you. Let's just have a look at this as an example.
For that one guy. But what about the others? How could Bud Light bring the same once-in-a-lifetime experience to thousands? The answer?
Whatever USA!
Bud Light took over an entire town for one weekend and transformed it into a mecca of spontaneity, created to win the hearts and minds of 20-somethings by serving up the amazing, shareable experiences they love. And like every town, they needed a mayor, so they chose this super-duper handsome guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna need a cake with a lady inside, a cake with a dude inside, and then a cake with some cake inside for all the people that love some cake.
I was the spokesperson, TV, online, and at live events, building excitement and intrigue around our mystery town.
I will reveal nothing!
We also teamed up with The Onion and other content partners to create additional buzz, because I can only do so much.
What would your spirit animal be and why?
Turns out, over 200,000 people auditioned for a chance to join me at this unique town / party of a lifetime.
Hey man, you up for whatever?
I'm up for obliterating the planet.
Oh no, bad news. You can't come.
Winners were selected and surprised and then given 24 hours to respond because, you know, if you're up for whatever, you don't really require a live advance notice.
What if I brought a plate of taquitos?
No, still no.
September 5th, 2014, 1,300 citizens led by moi, thank you very much, descended into Whatever USA for 3 days of impromptu concerts and surprise celebrity appearances. Like Vanilla Ice serving vanilla ice cream out of his vanilla ice cream truck, and that crazy Prancer-sized lady leading morning workouts with, you guessed it, Prancer-sizing. Was it a success?
Of course it was.
Citizens of my town took tons of pictures and videos and stuff, then sent it to millions of their friends who didn't get to go. Holy moly, that's a big number.
Way to go.
It's like Christmas, my birthday, Mardi Gras all combined. This is unreal.
How about that, taking over a whole town and rebranding it? Okay, that's a couple of years old, so it's not a new case study, and some of you may have seen it, but that's about the extent that brand experience is going to. And we're seeing the same things happening in Europe as well at the moment. So we've got some research, and I'm going to go through this reasonably quickly because you'll get this information later on, and there'll be a URL down the bottom. You can go and collect this information yourself. But this is one of the reasons that's driving this change. This quote, "Consumers are becoming increasingly cynical about traditional forms of media, so brands are diverting budget to create authentic experiences that generate brand content." So that's coming from the UK Brand Report, but it was a global study. This is how we define brand experience. And you are all in this business. The art of bringing brands and organisations to life by designing a sensory experience that creates a lasting and meaningful relationship between the brand and the individual. Brand experience can encompass everything from events, trade shows, sponsorships, virtual and hybrid events and exhibits to permanent installations, virtual or augmented reality experiences, and cutting-edge pop-ups, and the list goes on. That's the business that we're in. So what does the research tell us? So we've got some research, and I've pared it down to mainly APAC. But I've also found an external research to support it as well, because otherwise this was Freeman proprietary research, and you could quite easily say, well, you're just pushing a barrow. So I found another piece of research that came out 2 weeks ago from PSFK, which is the 2018 advertising playbook. And these were the top level things that came out. Businesses, I think there are over 400 top chief marketing officers were asked what their top business priority was. And this is really interesting, and here's the opportunity. 41% said they were launching a new product or services, 48% building brand awareness, 40% gaining market share, 50% reinvigorating customer interest, and 46% were changing an established customer perception. So what have you done was the next question that was asked. Well, 69% had actually created an experiential activity with the goal of helping have a better understanding of a product or a brand. 38% had created an activation to improve the social media and influence engagement. 42% had created a brand experience with the goal of sharing the vision for the future. And a large 58% of the industry experts have created experiential activities with the goal of helping consumers understand how a brand fits into their lifestyle. So that's external research. We did some research across the globe. 1,000 companies, event producers, event organisers, right across the globe. 10% of the APAC people that we surveyed were from China. So we basically said that brand experience helps future-proof, it drives sales, it simplifies messages, it builds relationships, and it creates authenticity. As I said, there's a lot of figures here. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly because I'll show you how you can actually download them for yourself. So why brand experiences? 61% of the marketers in Asia value it because they say it's a channel that creates memorable experiences. You can see that URL there, the fxp.co/2QAZ1910. Don't worry, it comes up lots of times after this, so you can write it down. If you go there, you'll be able to get hold of the whole report. It makes brands future-proof. And 60% of millennials in Asia were willing to give brands access to personal information in exchange for more personalised experiences. Brand experience drives sales. 89% of the marketers surveyed value brand experience for its ability to generate sales leads, and 47% of those placed the highest value on it. And that was from our survey as well. B2B marketers say that brand experience is an effective way of achieving lead generation, which, as we talked earlier on this morning, getting sponsorship and things like that, that's really a challenge in our industry. 50% of marketers in Asia feel that brand experience helps increase sales. Amplification, which for millennials is really important. Brand experience helps get advocacy for your brand or your customers' brands. They place high value in showcasing the organisation's thought leadership. And they feel that when personalised to the attendees, the experiences increase that advocacy. It builds relationships, brand experience. Brand experience creates ongoing relationships, especially with our millennials again. It builds ongoing relationships with them. And business professionals, and this is once again our industry of face-to-face meetings, are essential for nurturing and retaining long-term business relationships. As we established this morning, all the technology, all that stuff is fantastic, but human beings, as we saw in that drawing with the cave people, they want to get together and socialise and network. Marketers place high value on brand experience to build loyalty. It's about authenticity. And I'll skip through some of these so I'll get to some, because you can actually download this material yourself. So the summary is 50% feel that it helps increase sales, brand experience. Agree it builds loyalty, appreciates the ability for narrowing the target audience, and it creates memorable experiences, which is what we're talking about. Storytelling is at the heart of everything we're saying. We're all storytellers, and our business is helping our clients and our customers tell the stories that they need to tell. Technology has a part, as we talked before, about the convergence of people and technology, Humanity 2.0. It actually helps make the brand experience more personal, especially if that's the way you get your information nowadays. And the role of technology does empower people because they want to co-create, and the technology allows you to do that. This is really interesting for Asia. There's 4 bits of statistics that we got from our survey here that show that Asia is at the cutting edge of using this technology. It's really interesting because my colleagues in the US didn't expect this to be the case. 31% of Asia-based companies are using virtual reality right here, right now. That's more than they're using in Europe and the US. 30% of companies in Asia are developing interactive touchscreens to drive brand experience compared to 20 to 26% in the other geographies. I can tell you it was 20% in EMEA and it was 26% in the US. So in Asia and APAC, we're actually leading in this. I mean, that you would be aware of these figures already, but this is pretty exciting stuff. Companies in Asia are using, 22% of them are using gamification, which is, competitions, and I see that at expos and people are using, but once again, versus 9% and 13%. Once again, Asia's leading the way. And 42% are tapping into interactive touchscreens, etc., that sort of technology.
Reality is really a whole collection of technologies that allow people to experience an entirely different world. The sky's the limit when it comes to how will we actually utilize VR to change human experience. Our clients come to us to leave an impact on their audiences. And that is what virtual reality is capable of doing.
Not just about creating VR experiences for the sake of VR. It's more about how do we create a compelling story in the VR world that really engages the audience.
Here at Freeman, we're starting the virtual reality department, and we've kind of zeroed in into 3 main ways that we're going to show virtual reality to our clients.
The first is the VR Design Explorer. It allows us to bring our client Bruce designs to life in VR.
There's never a question once they actually see it built for real, it will be identical to how they saw it in the VR space.
The second VR experience is VR live streaming.
That live streaming and where you can see it real time, it takes watching and being at the event to a whole new level.
Next is the VR Product Explorer.
One of the other main reasons people want to have you come to a trade show floor is to educate you on their product. And they're always looking for new and interesting ways to do that.
It's just kind of nice to be able to give them more solutions across different verticals.
At Freeman, it's all about sustainability and being scalable. At the same time, we're investing in technology that we're going to have in-house as well as talent.
We want to be that partner to help you create something that's never been done before, that meaningfully changes people.
And I'm so excited to work with my teams and my clients. I'm really unlocking the vast potential of this technology.
So even though the technology around me, as I said, I'm very careful about not being too seduced for it because it's quite seductive when you see those things happening. But to me, I still see it as a storytelling medium. So what does brand experience potentially look like tomorrow? Well, imagine personalised experience, and we've seen some of those already. Imagine you walking into a trade show, and the minute you walk in, straight away, you're guided, and we heard some conversations before about beacon technology. You're actually guided to the places that you want to go and need to go. Imagine emotional engagement. Imagine your biometrics like is happening in China, but maybe beyond just registration. Imagine you walk into an immersion space. It's got all your information. It knows the music that you like. It knows your favourite everything, and the whole experience in this space is yours and yours alone. And when someone else walks in, it's totally theirs as well. Imagine experiences that transport. We used a VR experience for one of our clients, Omega, to basically transport people to the moon. And VR is great for that because you can't go to the moon. I think there's only 16 people who've ever set foot on the moon. The Association of Hematology in the US, they produced VR to actually take the people in the trade show on a journey through the capillaries and the arteries. So that's something that we can't do as well. So imagine being able to do that. In the end, it's storytelling, but it's linked to all the five senses. We've really got to think that everything we're doing is about the senses. This is an image, and Brian's timing's perfect now because I told him I was going to show him this shot. This is from CES 2016, and I was specifically looking for a Korean client. It's LG, and this represents the fourth industrial revolution. And at that particular CES, there was a quote, if I can remember it, that was made from the platform stage, which has said that at this moment, we're standing on the boundaries between before and after. And it's what you decide to do that's going to make it very clear to you what the after is actually going to be. This is the concerning bit for our industry. 58% of chief marketing officers who represent, this is from our Freeman research, that represent clients and your exhibitors' clients, feel that it's highly impactful, brand experience and the use of experience. Unfortunately, across the event planners and organisers that we actually researched, only 18% felt at the moment that it was something that they felt really strongly about incorporating or being prepared to go to their clients about. My concern is, I don't know, I'm sure Blockbuster's made its way over to here as well. What happened with Blockbusters? They heard the signs, they heard the whispers, and nothing changed. And here's some others as well. Kodak, still around, but Kodak invented digital photography and passed up on it. Borders was a great experience. They had books, but they missed the e-book revolution. Digital, we all know what happened with them, and Nokia is a classic example of something that happened. In fact, this is quite an interesting quote that came out last year from Rahul Gupta, who said, "We didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost." And it was because they were not prepared to either acknowledge that the change was there. They felt that it wasn't going to affect them or it might go away. We're already shown you that the research suggests that your customers and the new customers, the millennials, want experiences. They want blended spaces. They want that level of innovation and creativity. It's at our own peril if we ignore the research and what people are saying to us. So I hope in that 40 minutes or so that you've got a bit of an understanding that you are in the brand experience industry, that brand experience is the new black. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Any questions out there for Peter before we set him free? It's a little bit hard to see. It's a little bit overwhelming. I mean, if you're an exhibition organizer, a traditional one, I mean, where would you suggest you start? An example like Burning Man or Anywhere Town, USA. What can an organizer take away from that?
I think it's just looking outside your own industry. That's where the best influence and the best innovation comes from, is look at things that you normally, that's what we say to our creative team, look outside your normal domain. Be challenged. I mean, I say to teams often, go to the theatre, go to places where live engagement takes place and let it wash over you. And go to see things that you normally wouldn't see. I went and saw, when I was living in Hong Kong, I went and saw a Chinese opera. It was pretty scary, but I learned a lot from it because it was something different that I hadn't exposed myself to before.
Right.
So I think you can start small by being influenced by everything that's around you. And trust the millennials are no longer these kids that are walking around with their mobile devices. My son's just turned 30. He's smart. Listen to them. They can help.
I think the idea of co-creation is one where it's a way in for exhibition organizers, because if they have seminars or accompanying conferences, you can allow the participants to shape some of that content, some of the meetings.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thank you
Thanks
very
very much. I think we're going to do a plaque here. If you don't,
Okay.
just hold on for a second.